coming up with a season like this. The quarterback is doing pretty good, almost 70% on completions, and they got guys that caught long balls. They've got guys that got double. They got like four guys got double-digit receptions. So they're not just a bunch of blue collar guys with come out. They can throw the ball a little bit. I don't know who all they played, but if you're 6-0 at this point in the season, then you played pretty well.
It is Chalk Talk here on Sports Talk. Chuck Reedy and Ellis Johnson, our guest. All right, let's talk about South Carolina. They've had a couple of weeks to get ready for Texas A&M, Chuck. They are on a 3-game winning streak, so by the time they play A&M, they will have gone a month without tasting defeat. So mentally, this team's got to be in a great place right now, don't you think? The confidence level has to be very high, and I would expect they're going to go out and give Texas A&M a heck of a ball game, number one. And number two, offensively, would this be a time to spring a bunch of different stuff, a bunch of new stuff on maybe an unsuspecting defense?
Well, first of all, yes, they've got to come into this game feeling really good about themselves and should go into the game with an awful lot of confidence. I don't know about springing a lot of new stuff. I think what they need to do is go back and do what they've done the last 3 weeks, and that's be a balanced offense and being able to run the football. I said this before and I'll say it again. They won't win a game that they throw the ball over 30 times. I mean, you can't, if they, expect to go out there and win throwing the ball all around, I don't think that'll happen. If they can run the ball and throw the ball 20, 25, times and not, be forced to throw the football, then they got a great chance to win the game. Obviously they'll have some stuff in that they've been working on, but they just need to just stick to the fundamentals and do the stuff they've been doing well the last.
What do you see from their offensive line, Chuck, over the last 3 games? They had the 2 what you might call get-right games, and then the Kentucky game where they faced an SEC defensive line, and the 24 points not great, and they got, of course, a gift score to start the ball game. Right. But otherwise, what do you see up front with them? Are they making strides there, in your opinion? Are they getting better?
Well, I think they are getting better. The fact that they were able to run the ball effectively against Kentucky is a huge step forward, because they couldn't do that against Arkansas, couldn't do it against Georgia, and didn't do it very well against Georgia State. So, that's a step forward, and they protected a little bit better. Kentucky's a good football team. So that was certainly a positive and would indicate that they are getting better. And, I fully expect them to win Saturday. Playing at home, it should be a great crowd. I mean, and if they just continue to do the things and build on what they've done, I think they've got a great chance to win the game.
Is this the best you felt about them going into a Texas A&M game in recent years as far as the opportunity to win?
I don't think there's any question about that. Not only where South Carolina is, but, where Texas A&M is also. I mean, Texas, they've got a lot of problems, starting with the quarterback.
They do. Ellis, defensively, A&M is still pretty good. They're only allowing about 11 points per game. And South Carolina, in their recent troubles with Texas A&M, I just think they've had a hard time matching up with them from a physicality standpoint. I just think A&M's offensive, defensive lines have just been too strong for South Carolina's. Do you think the Gamecocks have a better chance this time around from a physical standpoint, matching up with what Texas A&M is going to trot out there?
I think they have a better chance, but I think it's more because of what Chuck mentioned. It's the quarterback position. They're really having issues there, and they're not consistent. And when Williams-Brice gets noisy, one of the most important things South Carolina has to do, I hate to sound like Lee Corso, but they've got to go out there and have a little bit of success early and keep that crowd in it, because I really think the noise and the atmosphere thing, the other factors, those quarterbacks are going to have a tough time. They're getting better on defense from Carolina. They're getting a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. I know everybody says Kentucky's offensive line is not as good as they have been this year, but that's fine. Carolina has some players out too. They didn't have their best quarterback, and I think that was a huge factor. but it doesn't matter who's standing back there. Usually the pressure is more because of protection. The quarterback could have held it a little too long or something. But they just, I think that the key to the game is if Texas A&M's defense is able to be fairly dominant, then they'll beat Carolina. But if they're not, I expect South Carolina to have a good night on defense, simply because of the home situation and the lack of production at quarterback for Texas A&M.
All right. A couple more things. We'll let you guys, go ahead and start your weekend early, as you like to do. Ellis, longtime SEC guy. Tennessee, Alabama, old-fashioned SEC slobber knocker. I mean, I know a lot of points were scored. It wasn't the typical 10-7 game that you were used to back in your day in the SEC. But what'd you think? What'd you think about what Tennessee did? What do you think about what Heupel is doing? Is Tennessee going to become like that, say, third or fourth power, maybe even second or third power in the SEC here and moving forward?
Well, I think they certainly have a chance to. He's already put them up in the middle of it. And whether they can finish it out, we'll see. But the key, if you want to say, are they going to become that team for the next 5 to 10 years, it's recruiting. And that's what changed at Tennessee in the last 15 or so years, is the recruiting was not consistently good year after year after year. So they're very impressive. And Hooker's a transfer. I think, is this his first year or second year there? But I mean,
second.
The guy's playing better than anybody in the country. And he was a transfer from Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is, when their recruiting starts keeping up with Alabama's, Georgia's, then they'll be right there every year. And I think one of the things everybody keeps overlooking, their defense has been very good this year in getting the ball and takeaways. I know they gave up a lot of yards and points. But they got a lot of critical stops the other night, too. They've done a great job. But I will say this. If you got the best hooker, you're usually going to have a good night.
Oh, he's been holding that. I hope you haven't used that on Teddy's show or anything. All right, come on.
Well, I have to admit it wasn't my original. I got it, stole it from somebody, but I'm not going to say who.
That's all right. It's original around here. That's good enough for me. Well, it's hard to follow that, Chuck, but we're going to try.
I can't top that.
I know. I'm not going to ask you to. But let me throw this at you. I threw this out on our poll question of the week as a what if. So just play along with me here. What if? So you got Tennessee, you got Georgia undefeated. Of course, they're going to play each other. Alabama's sitting there with one loss. So let's just play this out. Let's just say it works out where Georgia beats Tennessee, and then Georgia plays Alabama in the championship game. Alabama beats Georgia. So you got Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee all sitting there with one loss. All right, and let's say you've got an undefeated Clemson and an undefeated Michigan or Ohio State after all that plays out.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the committee will do, the playoff committee?
It's going to be Clemson, Michigan, or Ohio State. And in that scenario, Alabama's in because they're the SEC champions, and it'll be Georgia over Tennessee because they beat Tennessee. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Okay.
I mean, if Alabama's going to win the West unless Ole Miss beats them, which I don't think they can. Although, we've said this last week. Alabama's vulnerable. I mean, they've dodged bullets all year and caught up with them the other night. But if they win the SEC, they're in with one loss. So then it becomes down to Georgia and Tennessee, and there you go to head to head. I mean, I don't think there's any other way they could go.
Okay.
Clemson's in. If they go undefeated, they're in. I mean, there's no, and obviously the Michigan Ohio State winner is going to be in unless one of them gets tripped up somewhere along the way, which doesn't look like it.
Even though the AP voters media, and I know you don't think much of the media, but I mean, Clemson beat Florida State and they dropped in the rankings. I'm just saying. Well,
that's because Michigan was so dominant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how Clemson jumped Michigan the week before.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't make any sense to me then. But Michigan was dominant. I mean, beat ran for almost 500 yards. You think I'm not all over Michigan? I mean, those guys are good. Now, and beat a Penn State team and beat them bad. I mean, the score wasn't indicative of how bad they beat them.
Right.
So, I mean, Michigan is for real now. You know, they've got to go to Ohio State, which, you know, I mean, that game there will, you know, obviously will determine who goes to the playoff.
Yeah. I'm just thinking the committee, though, the power and the view of the SEC is so strong that they, you know, their idea is to get the four best teams, try to get the four best teams together, but they might look at if Tennessee loses to Georgia, say by just like a field goal, you know, at the very end, it's that kind of ball game. Okay. They have a heartbreaking loss. And then, you know, Georgia loses to Alabama. They all got one loss. They'll say, well, you know, Tennessee only lost to them by 3 points, 2 points. And they beat Alabama by 3, and then Alabama beat Georgia by 4. They're all even. How can you leave one of them out?
Well, how can you leave an undefeated Clemson out?
Well, how do they look at the ACC is what I'm saying. Now, I know they look at Clemson probably differently.
That.
Yeah.
I agree with you, and Clemson may not be one of the best 4 teams. And I would dare say that Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama are all better than Clemson. But, you know, Clemson's going to run the table unless they just, you know, unless they stumble somewhere. And you know, and it would be very difficult to keep an undefeated Clemson out.
I agree with that. That'd be a tough thing to do. Last thing, Chuck. Back in the day when you were recruiting Herschel Walker and like offering him cars and bags of money, did you ever think he'd become a U.S. senator possibly?
No, I never thought that. But no, I didn't. And I mean, that discussion is for a whole nother show. But we need the whole half hour to cover it. Okay.
We need to have that discussion, Ellis. And Ellis, thank you for bringing in some of your social life to us tonight. It was exciting.
Well, I'd like to take credit for it, but it wasn't mine. It was one I stole from somebody.
Okay. That's your best material sometimes when you take it from somebody else. Guys, we thank you.
Football.
Guys, we appreciate you very much. Have a great weekend. Ellis, enjoy when you go out to the fair, go have one of those donut hamburgers.
Oh, God. It was the first year I was here. We had LSU for a home game and fair week, and I'd never been through that at Carolina. They ought to never do that. It's just, oh my God, I'd hate to be within 20 miles of that place this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. All right, guys, thank you very much. We shall talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Hey, if you want a real hamburger, by the way, guys, you want a great hamburger, go to the Comeback Shack, all right? Go to one of Chuck's Comeback Shacks down there in Charleston, one in Mount Pleasant and one in North Charleston. That's a great hamburger. You don't have to put a donut on top of it, Chris, to make it good.
Hey, but if I'm going down to the Comeback Shack and down along the coast, I'm not getting a hamburger. I'm getting some seafood. Best seafood in the world is on the South Carolina coast. So I'll get my hamburgers inland. I'll get my seafood along the coast.
Yeah, but I'm trying to promote Chuck's restaurant. You're going
I've got no
me
problem
here.
with that.
You're fighting me here. I'm trying to promote
He doesn't
his
serve
restaurant,
seafood?
and you're trying to take it to a seafood place, and I'm trying to promote a hamburger place.
Does he not serve seafood there at all?
I don't think so.
I
don't think so. It's a hamburger. It's a Comeback Shack.
Okay,
It's a hamburger, salad, chicken sandwich kind of place. Yeah. But it is fantastic, to say the least. But thank them. Thank the two of them for joining us tonight. How about Ellis and his line there on
that was outstanding.
Indian Hooker, huh? Yeah.
That was outstanding.
That was great. Yeah, there's a towing service in Columbia. And part of their commercial line is so-and-so, we have the best hookers in town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talking about their hooks on their trucks there. You know what I mean. All right. When we come back, we're going to dive into the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl coming up here after the break.
By the way, before we do what's supposed to happen here, thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Former Vice President Mike Pence on Wednesday warned against the growing populist tide in the Republican Party. The former vice president says the conservative movement needs to chart a course between its Reagan-era foundation and new populist priorities.
Our movement cannot forsake the foundational commitment that we have to security, to limited government, to liberty, and to life. But nor can we allow our movement to be led astray by the siren song of unprincipled populism that's unmoored from our oldest traditions and most cherished values.
Mr. Pence spoke to a gathering at the Heritage Foundation. Russian President Vladimir Putin is imposing martial law in the 4 regions that Moscow recently annexed from Ukraine. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
Putin didn't immediately spell out the measures that will be taken under the martial law, but the Russian legislation envisages it may involve restrictions on travel and public gatherings and tighter censorship, as well as giving broader powers to law enforcement agencies. Putin, too, has granted emergency powers to the heads of other Russian regions. The moves are the latest sign fighting in Ukraine isn't going Putin's way. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Iranian climber Elnaz Rakabi returned to Tehran early Wednesday after competing in South Korea without wearing a headscarf, an act widely seen as support for anti-government demonstrators amid weeks of protests over the Islamic Republic's mandatory hijab. After landing, Rakabi gave a careful, emotionless interview to Iran's hardline state television, saying that going without a hijab had been an unintentional act on her part. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 100 points, the Nasdaq dropped 91, with the S&P 500 lower by 24. More on these stories at townhall.com.
You've got advanced prostate cancer, but you're not waiting around. You want straight talk, the facts about Orgovix.
Orgovix Relagolix 120 milligram prescription tablets is a treatment for adults with advanced prostate cancer. Fact: Orgovix is a different kind of androgen deprivation therapy treatment, a pill, not an injection. Orgovix may cause serious side effects, including a heart condition called QT prolongation. Tell your doctor right away if you feel dizzy, faint, have a racing or pounding heart, or chest pain. Orgovix can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during treatment and for 2 weeks after Orgovix treatment. The most common side effects include hot flushes, increased blood sugar and blood fat levels, muscle and joint pain, decreased blood hemoglobin levels, increased liver enzymes, tiredness, constipation, and diarrhea. Other side effects include weight gain, decreased sex drive, and erectile function problems. Orgovix may cause infertility. Talk to your doctor if infertility is a concern for you.
Go with Orgovix. Ask your doctor. For more facts, visit gowiththefacts.com.
Half off.
A controversial move by Australia has drawn the ire of Israeli officials. The latest from the Media Line's Felice Friedson.
Israeli officials are angry with Australia following Canberra's decision to reverse its recognition of Jerusalem as the Israeli capital. Prime Minister Yair Lapid called the policy change rash and wrong, expressing hope that the Australian government manages other matters more seriously and professionally. Australia recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital in December of 2018, but unlike the United States, did not locate its embassy there. On Monday, Australia's ambassador was summoned to Israel's foreign ministry for a discussion, diplomatic speak for addressing down. Australia's foreign minister said the issue of recognizing Israel's capital must be solved by the parties themselves in negotiations. I'm Felice Friedson, Town Hall News, Jerusalem.
News and analysis at themedialine.org and townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast, our coolest evening of the week with a frost warning and a low temp dropping down to 35. The sunshine continues tomorrow, and we start to warm back up to 67. Our high temp by Friday, we're back to 70. And the weekend, we get the mid-70s as a high temp. No rain in sight, lots of sunshine. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DM.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point. Ooh, you shouldn't have pressed that button. Oh. Now you get this.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. It is Sports Talk on a very busy Wednesday night here on the Sports Talk Media Network. In just a moment, we're going to dive into the rosters and hear from the coaches for the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. San Diego leading Philadelphia 7-4 now in the top of the sixth inning there in that ball game. So before we welcome in the coaches, Coach Gentry and Coach Bacon, let's tell you who will be on the rosters for the North and the South for this year's ball game coming up December 10th in Myrtle Beach. So here we go with the North roster. Defensive back Donovan Watkins of Fairfield Central. We have receivers Tyleek Mathis of Saluda and Drake Sloan of Powdersville. We have running back Vay Morton of Greenwood, receiver Keithan Washington of Denmark Oler, defensive back Josiah Jeffrey, Greenwood, couple of linebackers Brody Tesmail, Catawba Ridge, Evan Javis, Spring Valley, receiver Eli Merck from Daniel, quarterbacks Grayson Loftus, Gaffney, and Bennett Judy, Hillcrest, couple of good ones. Defensive back Austin McGee of Greer, linebacker Ty Cade of Abbeville, defensive back Will White of Dorman, linebacker Peyton Little of Powdersville, defensive back Caliber Hoey from Gaffney, running back A. Shane Durant from McCormick, defensive back Jalen Foster, Emerald, defensive lineman Hunter Puckett of Westside, defensive back Trevon West of Wren, defensive back Jacob Gary of Blythewood, linebacker David Wilson of Spring Valley, defensive lineman long snapper Jeb Robinson of Hillcrest, offensive lineman Lawton Clamp of Travelers Rest, Cam Johnson of Seneca, defensive lineman Cameron Jackson of Spartanburg, offensive lineman Will Jennison of South Aiken and Zach Moss of York, defensive lineman Omari Davis of Clover, Hezekiah Kennard of Clennon, offensive lineman Kanan Liggins, Ridge Spring Monetta, linebacker Terrell Hopkins of C.A. Johnson, three more offensive linemen, Cameron Darby of Belton Honeypath, A.C. McMoore of South Point, Graham Smith of Dorman, kicker Addison Nichols of Abbeville, another offensive lineman, Darrell Brannon of Spartanburg, receivers, Kaya Cook of Burns and Kaysen Elledge of Lawrence, tight end defensive back, Apollos Cook of Airport, defensive lineman, Anthony Thurman of Blythewood, receiver, B.J. Atkins, Christchurch, linebacker Damian Jackson, Northwestern, and defensive lineman A.J. Miller from South Point. To the South roster, receivers, Nate Branch, Lower Richland, Elijah Chalmers, Marlboro County, defensive back, Darian Perry, May River, quarterbacks, Zoltan Osborne, Fort Dorchester, Tanner Staten, Brooklyn Casey, couple of defensive backs, Jordan Turner, Goose Creek, Cameron Austin Conway, athlete Casey Fields of Beaufort, three receivers, Tayshawn Sellers, Hannah Pamplico, Jalen Linder, Bluffton, and Jake Doty, Myrtle Beach. Defensive back, Colton Fairs from Beaufort. Defensive lineman, Jaden Jones, May River. Linebacker, Chandler Perry, Dutch Fork. Receiver, Justin Daniels of Manning. Two running backs, Deshaun Anderson of Hartsville, Jonah Norris of Lexington. Defensive back, Brandon Cece of Lakewood. Athlete, Daquan Burrows of Johnsonville. Running back, Tyler Smith of Barnwell. Defensive back, Javon Gillespie of Ridgeview. Two linebackers, O'Marion Buckman, Bamberg Earhart, and Jalen Davis of South Florence. Three defensive linemen, Anthony Grant Dillon, Trenton Richardson Lee Central, Timothy Castaigne of Oceanside Collegiate, linebacker Torrey Gathers of Stratford, offensive lineman Josh Daniels of West Florence, two more defensive linemen, Elijah Brown Sumter, Amonte McCray of Cross, and four more offensive linemen, Cameron Durant, Cane Bay, Mason Gregg of Sumter, Chiffon Boyd of Andrews, Nathan Thompson from Conway. Linebacker, Fuller Sims of Andrew Jackson. Two more offensive linemen, Blake Cook of Gilbert and Kendall Brown of Wilson. Defensive lineman, DeMonte Garrett of Lower Richland. Offensive lineman, James Mosley of Woodland. Receiver, Nigel Johnson of Crestwood. Tight end, holder, and long snapper, Jalen Davis of Lake Marion. Tight end, Tracy Stevens of Ridgeview. Kicker, punter, Jack Well of Lucy Beckham. And defensive lineman, Max Drag from Chapin. There you go. The rosters for the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl for 2022. Let's talk to the coaches. Coach Robin Bacon of the North, out of Spring Valley. Coach Justin Gentry of the South, out of Chapin High School. Coach Bacon, good evening, sir. How are you? Coach Bacon, are you with us, sir?
Yes, I'm here.
Great.
Yes,
Great to
can you
be
hear me?
with us. Yes, sir. We got you loud and clear. Thank you very much. Coach Gentry, good evening. How are you, sir?
Sir, how are you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Congratulations to you and your staffs for getting these rosters put together. Coach Bacon, from the North standpoint, as you were looking over the available talent and trying to piece your team together, what things did you look for and what things did you find?
I think the biggest thing is we wanted guys who competed. I think every play, I think that was important. Obviously highlight films play a lot. We spent a lot of time, obviously talking to national recruiters, getting recruiting database, and then really just kind of hammering home, what we wanted to run. And, obviously we're kind of a little bit of a disadvantage. Coach Gentry and I, generally the Shrine Bowl picks a lot earlier, and they kind of waited to the very end, which kind of put a little pressure on us, having to kind of pick up our list. But we really wanted kids that competed every play, that were physical, and obviously could fit into the system that we were going to try to run offensively and defensively.
Coach Gentry, how about you when you went over the available talent around the South? How plentiful did you find it? And did you find everything you were looking for?
I think so. We started this process back early spring last year, and we started watching junior highlights, and we got the word out to the coaches. Highlights got us interested, but game film helped us pick the team. And so we kind of went through the spring looking for guys that were going to compete at a high level every play. And then once we started getting game film from their senior film, we could kind of weed out through the actual game film who could compete, who could be aggressive, who could be a physical. And we'd already met on X's and O's. So at that point, we were trying to figure out who fit our schemes that we were going to try to run the best. And, it was a fun process. It was a difficult process, but overall, it was very rewarding.
Well, we all know that these all-star games, by and large, they kind of boil themselves down to 7-on-7s in a lot of ways. Throwers and catchers, that's what people like to see. That's what they like to promote, and scoring points and excitement and stuff like that. Coach Bacon, how do you feel about your quarterbacks and the guys that can catch it?
Well, I tell you, I feel really good. We felt like the guys that we picked were probably Shrine Bowl guys, and we were lucky. And I'll tell you, there was a lot of really good quarterbacks in the upper state. We had probably 8 or 9 quarterbacks that we went through, but at the end, just kind of looking at everything, we really felt like, Grayson Loftus at Gaffney has been unbelievable, and Bennett Judy at Hillcrest, and those guys are throwing up big numbers. Very heady, both 5A programs that are very successful. They've got good coaching staffs, and we really feel good about them. And our wide receivers, we feel really good. We got Keithon Washington from Denmark, who's an athlete who's really, really electric. Tyleek Mathis out of Saluda is just an incredible athlete. Drake Sloan, really good. Eli Merck up at Daniels been huge in the state championship games, and that was one of the things we really looked at him. Trying to figure out, which guys that we wanted to get. So we felt like, we had 2 really strong quarterbacks with big arms. They're also good athletes. So we're kind of really excited. And of course, Coach Brian Smith is coaching the quarterbacks, and Robert Muster at Powdersville is coaching the wide receivers. So I thought they did a great job picking the team.
Yeah, and your running back, Ashawn Durant, is one of your running backs. I mean, if he's anything like his brother, he's a heck of a running back. Does he kind of measure up to his brother, who had the career at Duke and did so well there?
Yeah, he is a steal for us. I'll be honest with you. I was surprised he was left off the Shrine Bowl list. But we've got 3 or 4 guys. We've got V. Morton at Greenwood, who's a big physical guy. We also selected obviously Evan Javis, who plays running back for us, plays linebacker. He's another one that's really good. But Hunter Puckett is a 6'4", 235-pound running back at Westside, he's going to play defensive end for us, but he's a big physical. We wanted to have a slasher guy, and we wanted to have a big physical guy if we had to run between the tackles. And feel like we did a good job with that.
All right, Coach Gentry, same for you. What about your throwers and receivers, and how you feel about an offense that can put some points on the board?
Zoltan Osborne from Fort Dorchester. Fortunately and unfortunately, I've had to play both my quarterbacks I picked, but got to see him Zoltan is a phenomenal quarterback. He manages a game as good as any quarterback I've ever had to participate against. Very smart, headsy guy back there. And Tanner Staten reminds me a lot of Logan Bailey we had here a few years back that can just flat out play football. Been very impressed with his arm, his physical ability to make plays and keep plays alive. So we're taking two different style quarterbacks. They both can do some great things back there. From a receiver standpoint, Marco Thompson, our wide receivers coach, and pretty much our whole offensive staff, we took a lot of guys that can do different things. We've got different guys. Elijah Chalmers from Marlboro County. I mean, he can stretch the field. To we taking Doty, who's going to be a heck of a slot player for us. So we've got the ability with some of these guys. Jay Sean Anderson at running back. Jonah Norris and Daquan Burrows and Tyler Smith. Those are four guys that are going to touch the ball in some capacity. Tyler Smith from Barnwell, his ability to play anywhere on the field. But probably one of the young men I'm mostly impressed with, Casey Fields from Buford. Played wide receiver, and now he's at running back. And heck, I believe if we moved him to left tackle, I think he would compete at left tackle for us. So we've got him and Dalen Linder both out of Beaufort County. Linder is, statistically leading the state right now. He can just go up and get the ball. He can catch the ball in space and make you miss. So we feel good about the playmakers we've got. We've just got to find a way to pull them together with a couple of days of practice and see what kind of team we can play on Saturday.
Sure.
South head coach Justin Gentry and also North head coach Robin Bacon with us tonight, chatting about the selection for the 75th edition of the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl, set for Myrtle Beach on December the 10th. And guys, sort of a generic overview, if you can compile and sort of compress in a couple of minutes what it takes you guys almost an entire football season to try and do. But if you can give us an idea as to what restraints you have in terms of selection and how you're able to boil down your team and make sure you're able to get a good sample of the north side of the state and also the southern side of the state. And Coach Bacon, if you can chime in, and then we'll go to Coach Gentry on that.
Absolutely. Well, the requirements for the South Carolina Football Coaches Association is that we have to take one player from every region. So that's, 4 regions in 1A, 4 regions in 2A, 4 regions in 3A. We got 4 regions in 4A, but we only got 3 regions in 5A because we have 7 regions in 4 or 5A. So, the biggest thing is obviously we can only take 2 from one team. So when you look at that, you're basically taking 18 kids, 18 to 20 kids right off the bat, 1 from each region. So, it's a tough process because of, you've got to leave some really good players out. I mean, there's some teams that had maybe 3 or 4 kids that could play. But you also got to select from those smaller regions. Not to say there's not great players that are down there, but obviously, the higher the level, the better the competition. So there are some things that we're kind of restricted to, when we get there. And then again, numbers, it's really up to us how many offensive linemen or defensive linemen we pick. But we are under a lot of restraints. A lot of people criticize, probably any coach that coaches an all-star game, but until you get this process, and you watch as much film as we did, and I know Justin's staff's just like ours. We were meeting every Tuesday at Newberry College, and again, this goes back to February and March when we started this whole thing. So there are a lot of restrictions on us.
Coach Gentry, in your mind, what's the biggest challenge you had in terms of meeting all their requirements and also trying to get as good a sample size as you can with quality players to go out and obviously the main goal is to win this thing in December, but what kind of challenges did your staff have to face when you were trying to select your team?
Well, I told my staff when we first met as a staff that, this was such a great honor to represent our state of South Carolina and the coaches associations. And get to go down to Myrtle Beach for pretty much a week and enjoy that week down there. But the ultimate goal is to win a football game. So with that being said, we started this trek, back early spring last year. You are restricted based on who what regions you've got to take. Excuse me. And but coaching in these All-Star games in the past, it's a very difficult situation trying to pick and match up not only every region in the state, but also what you're trying to accomplish on an offense, defense, and special teams. And so it's very difficult. But like I said earlier, it's a very rewarding experience. You get to understand a lot of it. I've been on the other end where I've had guys that I felt could play in this game or in all-star games and they didn't, but I also understand the process. I also understand that we can't take everybody. We're so limited with 44 roster spots and heck, if we took 50, 60 guys on the roster, then you're dealing with guys you can't get into the game. So your hands are a little bit tied and ultimately, once you hit every region, it comes down to your X's and O's. What are we going to try to do offensively and defensively from a schematic standpoint to try to win the ball game? So we feel we're very comfortable with our roster. We wouldn't have picked them if we weren't. And so we're looking forward to it. And like I said, we're ready to get down to the beach and get this crowd together and start meeting them as young men. I will tell you, we've reached out to all our coaches. This is not only a good football team, but it's a good group of young men that we've selected for the South Squad.
It sounds like it. Both of you done a great job. The rosters look fantastic. We're looking forward to the game. I know you guys, the two of you still got a lot of football left at your respective locations. So good luck to you the rest of the season. We look forward to being with you all week in December. And looking forward to a great football game December 10th at Doug Shaw Memorial Stadium. Guys, thanks for being with us so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Phil, for having us on. We're very excited about the game.
Thank you.
Thanks, fellas.
Thank you. Hey, thank you, and go South.
Thank you.
Go North, baby. Go North, baby.
Great. We appreciate that very much, getting it fired up. All right, Coach Gentry, Chapin, and Coach Bacon from over at Spring Valley. Looking forward to being with them when that rolls around in December. Okay.
I don't envy them their job at all, Phil. I really don't.
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as putting a team together.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, once they get the team together, it's outstanding and a great honor. But trying to get enough out of every region, as they pointed out, there are a lot of restrictions, and I'm glad they are, because if you didn't put those restrictions, I fear you might see only 5A and 4A players. So I like the fact that every region has to be represented, but that doesn't make it easier.
Yeah, no. But the North-South, the Touchstone Energy Bowl, has always looked out for everybody, the big teams and the small schools as well. All right, we got to hit a break. When we come back, we'll give you the recruiting report for tonight, and then we'll be followed by great edition of SC Wild coming up. A lot of deer talk. If you're into deer hunting, if you're into eating deer, venison, then you want to tune in for that for sure with Major Downer. Got a lot of great stuff to share with us on that. 7-4, San Diego leading the Phillies. Bottom of the sixth. Be right back.
Life, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit PlayResponsiblySC.com.
When your day calls for some winning, why not watch your favorite football team at Dave & Buster's? We've got massive HD TVs and hundreds of the hottest new games. Sip from our chef-crafted cocktail menu with exclusive drinks such as the Strawberry Watermelon Margarita or Dangerous Waters. Cheer on the team with Cantina Nachos or wings featuring one of our 12 wing flavors. When your day calls for some winning, it's time for Dave & Buster's, where you can watch the games and play the games. Locations in Greenville, Columbia, and Myrtle Beach.
Hi, this is Major Billy Downer with DNR. And coming up tonight at 7:30, another edition of SC Wild on the Sports Talk Radio Network.
In Columbia, South Carolina, game days are our specialty. Whether you're watching the game from inside the stadium or from the big screen at your favorite local spot, the energy remains the same. Craft the perfect fall Saturday in a city where there is plenty of action on and off the field. From tubing and kayaking to Soda City to rooftop restaurants and plenty barbecue. We're ready when you are. Plan your weekend at experiencecolumbiasc.com.
You were always more than my mom. You were my role model, my best friend, and biggest supporter. You filled my days with unconditional love. And you also prepared for the day when you couldn't be here. Because of the woman you were back then, I'm able to be the woman I am now. Your planning made this moment possible.
Set your family up for life. Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance. Your friends for life.
Life insurance isn't for you. It's for those you love the most. For a complete insurance review, call Buddy Bridges in Lawrence County at 864-923-2174, serving Lawrence, Clinton, and the shores of Lake Greenwood.
Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company, Jackson, Mississippi. Not licensed to do business in all 50 states.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for beef. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. So whether it's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with a family, make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. Smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at scattle.org. Beef, it's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff program.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I love sports, and I've helped people for over 30 years. Contact me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com when the insurance company won't pay your claim or you have complicated issues. Some other business causes your business to lose money, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. When you lose a relative and find out you got cut out of a will or don't get what was promised. When you have serious injury, like from a wreck or mishap or on the job, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
Got to dive in quickly to recruiting, brought to you by Seawells. Don't forget the daily luncheon buffet tomorrow once again, 11 to 2. And the very best in the catering business, good folks at Seawells, at SeawellsCateringSC.com. Phone number 803-771-7385. USC tight ends coach Jody Wright struck up a connection with tight end Luke Chilton, 6'7", 240, Fredericksburg, Virginia. Not offered yet, but he's reviewed him and evaluated him, and he's got him coming in for the Texas A&M game. We'll see what happens from that visit. So it was really a few months ago, he said, that Coach Wright started following him on Twitter and then contacted him, and he sent film, and he liked it. Chilton estimated he has around 20 catches this season, 200 yards and a touchdown. He's athletic. He can flank out, and he can get down the field. He can also line up in an H-back position, and he can block as well. He's been to games at Virginia Tech, VMI, and Towson. Also Temple, VMI, Duke, Air Force, William & Mary been showing interest. 2024 quarterback Brenton Tolles III out of Brandywine, Maryland. 2025 tight end receiver Imari Winston, Calhoun, Georgia. 2027 teammates defensive back Jaden Gibson and receiver Wasim Murray of Brunswick, Georgia. They plan to be at USC Saturday. USC women landed a commitment from a top player in Minnesota, 5'10" Tessa Johnson of Albertville. Clemson target 6'3" Mike Williams of Baltimore will take his final official visit this weekend to LSU. Already been to Clemson, Syracuse, DePaul, and Wake Forest. Duke and Auburn going to get in this week to see 2024 6'4" Cam Scott of Lexington per Jamie Shaw on 3. And, of course, Scott, who was at Tennessee last weekend, will take his official visit to USC this coming weekend. There you go. Recruiting brought to you by Seawells. SC Wild from DNR coming up after the break.
Friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast, our coolest evening of the week with a frost warning and a low temp dropping down to 35. The sunshine continues tomorrow, and we start to warm back up to 67. Our high temp by Friday, we're back to 70. And the weekend, we get the mid-70s as a high temp. No rain in sight, lots of sunshine. I'm Brian Leonard with your on-point local weather.
You've waited to start the big project at your home. Wait no more. All Southern Construction is the local family-owned and operated group to make your dream a reality. We do home additions, sunrooms, decks, and porches. We can also do shingle or metal roofing, and our work is guaranteed. Whether it's a repair or a brand new addition, All Southern Construction will be with you from start to finish. Online, find us at allsouthernconstruction.com or give us a call at 206-4816. That's 206-4816.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. Former Vice President Mike Pence on Wednesday warned about the growing populist tide in the Republican Party as he admonished Putin apologists unwilling to stand up to the Russian leader over his assault on Ukraine. Speaking at the Conservative Heritage Foundation in Washington less than a month before November's midterm elections, Pence addressed the growing gulf between traditional conservatives and a new generation of populist candidates. Embattled Los Angeles Councilman Kevin De Leon has told Univision he will not resign amid an uproar over a leaked tape that featured him participating in a meeting in which Latino officials made crude racist remarks and plotted to expand their political power. The scandal already has led to the resignation of former City Council President Nuri Martinez. More details at srnnews.com.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
If you're an avid shooter or you're new to shooting, Shooter's Choice is your paradise. A firearms specialty store with all types of firearms, ammunition, accessories, AR platform rifles, shotguns, hunting rifles, and much more. Shooter's Choice has the largest and best selection of firearms in the area. Shooter's Choice is the oldest, the most professional firearms dealer in the Midlands. They've served us for more than 30 years. Family owned, they've never let themselves lose that hometown feel. You go into Shooter's Choice, you'll get experts who hunt and shoot. It's not like some big box store. Their staff has decades of experience. You just won't get this anywhere else. From the classics to the newest cutting-edge products anywhere in the firearms world, they buy, sell, and trade firearms. They have an indoor firing range for handguns and hunting rifles. If you don't want to spend the gas money, hop on ShootersChoiceSC.com and shop online 24/7. Whatever you choose, Shooter's Choice will make it easy on you. In West Columbia at 944 Sunset Boulevard or online, ShootersChoiceSC.com. Make it your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
When you're a military veteran with over 40,000 organizations trying to help you, it can be hard to find the right information. That's why AARP brings together valuable resources to help you navigate your options. AARP.org/veterans. With the free veteran employment and fraud prevention resources, caregiving tools, and access to discounts, AARP, on a mission to support veterans. Visit AARP.org/veterans today.
Hi, honey. I love fall. Cooler weather, football games, the fair. I can't wait.
Yes, but I dread all the other things that come with it, like the flu.
No one likes that, but luckily we have True Pharmacy.
What can they do?
Just a quick visit to their website at truerxsc.com, and we can make an appointment to get our shots at our convenience.
So no waiting in the doctor's office or in line?
Nope, quick and painless.
Well, what are we waiting for? Let's make that appointment. True Pharmacy, online at truerxsc.com and 2 locations, West Columbia and Divine Street.
Hey, it's the Cigar Militia. We want to thank the Midlands for a wonderful first year. Thank you for helping us grow. We had no idea we had so many good friends out there. One thing I love about the cigar culture is we all have our favorite brands, but we're also willing to try new ones too. Come in and get your old standby or have one of our knowledgeable staff members walk you through the humidor to your new favorite. We're at 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard in the same plaza as the Melting Pot Restaurant.
Now on Sports Talk, it's SC Wild with Major Billy Downer of the Department of Natural Resources. Major Downer is here to take your questions about the great outdoors in South Carolina. Give him a call at 888-898-2525. It's SC Wild from DNR on the Sports Talk Radio Network.
All right, time for another outstanding edition of SC Wild from DNR here on Sports Talk. We welcome back into the program the one and only Major Billy Downer, who I believe is somewhere outside in a field somewhere doing something. Major, good evening. How are you?
It's like a game except different. So I am live from the field here in South Carolina. The cold has descended upon our state, and the chill is in the air, and deer are moving. That's the report from the field. And it is now, actually, firearm season is open from the mountains to the sea, literally. So all of our game zones are open for firearms now, so deer season is in full swing. And this weather couldn't have hit a more apropos time to have some nice cold weather here when everybody can go out and enjoy deer hunting a field in our great state. And they are moving. Cold weather just gets everybody excited. They get moving. Bucks are chasing does, and there's just a lot of activity right now. So it's a good time to be out in creation watching everything work.
Now let me ask you this. You know, football fans, they start counting down the days of the start of football season, probably back sometime in the spring, and baseball fans count down to the start of their season, et cetera, basketball fans. So you, as a lover of the great outdoors and as a lover of deer hunting, when do you start counting down the days to the start of deer hunting season so you can do exactly what you're doing tonight?
Pretty much January 2nd. When the season ends January 1st, you just know 6 months from now it starts all over again. We just have that long, we always joke about it, we have long season here in South Carolina, and we're very blessed with that. So lots of opportunity for people to go afield and deer hunt. So we're just happy to have that. This cold weather just really makes it nice. It's not, you're not sweating in the deer stand swatting mosquitoes, which is typical South Carolina hunting weather. It's a lot better to bundle up and sit in the stand and kind of just sit still and watch Mother Nature move around. So
I was
enjoying that tonight.
You sound cold. I bet it sounds like the nose is running a little bit. Let me ask you this for somebody who doesn't know. Yeah, I can tell. Let me ask you this, though, from somebody who doesn't know, and might be an ignorant question, but anyway, it's a question. So have we ever had year-round deer hunting in South Carolina, or is that too dangerous to the crop?
No, it's so first of all, our deer season pretty much revolves around the fall and winter. That's pretty much our season.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because deer have a chance to reproduce in the spring and summer and, just take part in Mother Nature there for 6 months, 7 months of a break. And in some parts of the state, a little bit longer than that. Up in Mountain Zone and Region 2, the Game Zone 2, their season just started for rifles October 11th. So that part of the state is shorter, not very short, but shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly October 11th to January 1st. So, but that's to give animals a chance to reproduce, to maintain a population size in our state, which we do have a large population. We enjoy that. We talked to Charles last time and just confirming our population is somewhere around 750,000 animals statewide. Some people, just like you, the deer hits their car, I think there's 1 million or more. There's too many. So, the population gets really bad when you get hit by one. So,
yes.
But tonight we wanted to talk about scoring deer tonight, and Charles is actually very good at that. He is, a big game project coordinator, and he's been to the school. Literally, they go to school or classes to learn how to score antlers for bucks. And I thought people might take interest in that because everybody, especially this time of year when they're chasing bucks left and right, they are, looking hard to find a buck that might be something they want to mount for posterity, potentially a nice wide rack or a big buck, as they call it. And, everybody's definition of a big buck's different. A guy's first deer, it's a 6-point, that's only 12 inches wide, might be a big buck to him because he's never seen anything like that. But for a lot of people, they may be looking for that 16, 17 inch, what they call outside the ear rack, where the antlers actually spread outside the ears. And you get 8 to 10 inch tines, real tall, what they call it, the tines, the antlers stick up high above the head, and that becomes what a big buck is. But tonight, just want to talk a little bit about the Boone and Crockett system and how we do that. And maybe we might reflect a little bit on Pope and Young, mostly Boone and Crockett tonight, which is the official scoring system nationwide for scoring white-tailed deer. Do we have Charles yet, or are we still waiting?
We do. No, he's standing by waiting for you.
Charles, thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Billy, I'm here, bro.
I hear you. Well, look, question for you. Out, this time of year, it's cold. People out deer hunting, they're trying to find that, quote, big buck. And, we talk about, we've talked before in the past on the show, and you're a big proponent of, managing our whitetail herd a little bit better and managing for larger bucks and letting things grow so they can get bigger. And we know that. But just typically, what would be the largest deer on record in South Carolina? Would it be in the 180 class or what bigger than that?
Well, on the typical side, there's Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young, and I was listening to y'all before I came on, but Boone and Crockett is the overarching North American record keepers of big game. Pope and Young is the counterpart for archery, okay? They both use the exact same system, okay? So in South Carolina, the Boone and Crockett top end was a Pickens County in 1994. Pickens County deer it netted 176 even. And the non-typical, that record was long standing from the early 70s until about 4 or 5 years ago when it was broken. That's like 216. Maybe a little change on the non-typical side. Of course, non-typical is a little different, as you know. Some of your listeners may not, but a lot of your listeners will understand the difference between typical and non-typical.
Sure. So let's stop for a minute. When we talk numbers like that, I know Phil's going to want to ask that. What the heck's 170? What's 180? What's 216? So as Charles can absolutely explain, we'll simplify and let him get a little more detail into it. But the Boone and Crockett system basically measures a buck for different or antlers of a deer or other animals. They have other measurements, but they measure the antlers for length. So you're looking at inches, total inches, when it goes to width. And go ahead, Charles.
I was going to say exactly. When folks hear about 170 points, a point is an inch. And for antlered animals like deer, the measurements are taken to the nearest 1/8 of an inch. And you're right. If you look at a score sheet for a white-tailed deer, it looks complex, but it's really not. You've got a spread measurement, and the spread measurement that counts is the inside spread. Then you've got a column for the right antler and a column for the left antler. And basically you're measuring the length of the antler, what most people call the beam, the antler beam. You're measuring the points that come off the beam, and then you're measuring the circumferences between the points. Then you got a total for the right antler, a total for the left antler. Then you have the symmetry component, Billy, which is the difference between corresponding measurements on the right antler and left antler. For example, let's say you have got a buck that you're measuring, and the brow points, most people understand what a brow point is. One brow point is 2 4/8 inches long. The other one is 2 3/8 inches long. Then your difference between those is 1/8. So that differences column is going to have a total down at the bottom line, as does the right antler and the left antler. So you add, you're adding all that up. You subtract the differences. You add the spread, and that's how you get your net. Now with a non-typical, you do the same thing. But if you've got crazy points, a lot of people call them stickers and kickers and drop points. Those non-typical points would add to that final net score. A lot of people don't understand, even with the real weird looking racks, you have to find a typical rack in there somewhere. And that's what you start with.
Right. And that's going to be typical is going to be pretty much symmetrical as much as it can be. I know that. But
correct.
I've helped many a time at the shows just with things. So one of the things I know that folks always ask, and I thought it'd be interesting for you to hit on just for a moment, is what, in your opinion, and your time doing this, and you've worked on plantations, you've done this a long time, and you've been measuring deer for a long time. What makes a deer make the book? And when we say make the book, folks, that's 125 points.
For South Carolina.
It's got a net. That's for South Carolina. That's right. It's got a net, 125.
Mm-hmm.
So, Charles, everybody wants to say, oh, he's got mass. Well, what does that mean to the average person when
Sure.
he's got mass?
Sure. And I can throw some stats out. As far as the different components, what contributes the most to the overarching score, what I can tell you is that what a lot of people fail to recognize is the beam length. You're measuring the right beam, the left beam, but on the average, the beam lengths cumulatively are 30% of your overall score. That's pretty strong. Your spread measurement is about 12% of your score. Your circumference measurements, and there's 8 of them. Each set of antlers is entitled to 8 circumference measurements. That's 4 on the right, 4 on the left. It doesn't matter if it's a 6-pointer, an 8-pointer, or a 10-pointer. There's 8 circumference measurements, and we won't get into the details on 6-pointers and 8-pointers, but they're due 4 circumferences on each side. Those circumference measurements are worth average about 20% of the score. So that leaves all the points, and all the points together are about 38% of the overall score. So go back to your beam lengths. Those 2 measurements are 30% of your score. So I'm all about some long beams. And I'll tell you, Billy, what I see a lot in our state records, that 125 mark, at least in South Carolina, separates the men from the boys. And what we will see is that you'll have these big 8-point bucks that have 21-inch beams, which is nothing to sneeze at, but they won't make it. They'll be 122, right. 123. You got to have, a deer with 22 or better inch beams, and then good tine length as well. And that's why I think the spread is real important. But again, the beam length is very important. So again, to summarize, beam length 30%, spread 12%, all of your points together 38%, and your circumference is about 20%. So
now I can verify this for Charles's sake. When Charles says this, and he's told me many times, it takes a really good 8-point to make the book, to make 125. It just really does. And I have shot some really nice 8-points that I thought would make the book, and they did not. They fell short.
Well, yeah, I think you've got a couple though, Billy.
I got.
Well, your daughter.
I know my daughter made it. Of all things, Bill, my daughter Cora made the book.
How important is it to make the book? Is that like? It's
like bragging rights. I mean, it's kind of one of those things, like Charles said, 125 separates the men from the boys. It's a nice deer, just a 125.
But guys, I'll tell you something. One thing, and I agree. Hunters get bowed up and they get proud about making our state book, and they should.
Mm-hmm.
However, what our antler record list is doing, it is promoting our deer. So it's for somebody like me, it's more about the deer than the hunter. Now, my hat's off to the hunter, but it's showing respect to the deer and the overall management of the deer population and you know, our deer population here in South Carolina. So, and a lot of hunters lose sight of that. We're recognizing the deer, not the hunter, which a lot of people go, huh?
That's an excellent point, because it's about the size of that deer. It really speaks, like you said, for what we have here. If you look at our book and see how much it takes to get there, and when you get a big deer like that and the number of deer that are in the book, Charles, good question there. How many deer make the book annually? Is there an average number you can think of? Or?
Yeah, you know, Billy, we're almost to 8,000 all time. Our records program began in 1974, and of course, we measure in deer that may have been back to the early 1900s, but we're just under 8,000. Most of those are typicals. You know, almost 7,600 and about 350 non-typicals. As to annually, a good year we will have 220 or 225 entries. Now that doesn't mean all those deer were killed that deer season, but most of them were killed that season or the one before that. This past measuring cycle was the best we've ever had. And I think a lot of it was because we were making up for COVID with all the shutdowns and all that. You know, we didn't have the Sportsman's Classic, which is one of our bigger scoring sessions, but we had, I'm trying to remember here, gosh, like 278 successful entries this last cycle. Again, not all those were killed last deer season, but a high percentage of them were. We measured over 600 sets of antlers this last cycle.
Ooh. Let me ask you this real quick. Where in the country is there a particular state where you have the enormous deer when you're going to measure these things? It's like off the charts, the size. Is there a particular state or region that stands out?
Yeah, when you're talking about Boone and Crockett proportions, which we are not here in South Carolina, we've got a handful of Boone and Crockett deer, but you're looking at states like Kansas, Iowa, Wisconsin, you know, those Midwestern Corn Belt states. Kentucky's a great state that's pretty close to us, and a lot of it, if not a very high percentage of it, has to do with soil fertility. You know, when I said Corn Belt, that's very important. You know, they measure their topsoil in feet. They grow massive amounts of agriculture because of that. And, you know, the size of a deer and its antlers is all related to nutrition. We got poor soils here, and what little bit of good soil we had, we wore out cotton farming long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we never did have that great of a soil fertility, you know, type index. So it's different. It's a lot different depending on where you are in the country, and a lot of it has to do with soil fertility.
Well, let me ask this, a more pointed question to South Carolina. It made me think, Phil, when you said that, Charles, one of the interesting points for our state is, I think you probably know this off the top of your head, what counties in our state are really leading as far as bigger deer? Is Edgefield one I remember, or am I wrong there?
No. If you look at all time in order, Aiken, Orangeburg, Anderson, Fairfield, and Williamsburg. And really, Aiken and Orangeburg are head and shoulders above anybody else.
That's what it was, Aiken I was thinking about, not Edgefield. God,
yeah, Aiken,
okay.
Exactly. Aiken. Yep, absolutely. Yep. And if you know, Orangeburg's a good example. It's a big county, number one, but look at the agriculture in Orangeburg County, and the reason there's a lot of agriculture, pretty good dirt down there. And plus, the agriculture contributes to the deer population. So you ask a farmer, you know.
Yep, they got a solid river system, solid, you know, good soil there, good drainage, everything. So,
yep. In fact,
I know this.
Those 5 counties make up about 25% of all of our records, and they only represent 10% of the counties in the state. So, you know, the spotlight is on them.
So list them again one more time, Charles, for those who may not heard it.
In order: Aiken, Orangeburg, Anderson, Fairfield, and Williamsburg. Now, if you look at it per unit area, you know, all of those are real big counties. If you look at it per unit area, you start looking at counties like Abbeville, Allendale, And that's really, truth be known, that's the way to look at it, because you can't compare Allendale County to Orangeburg County because it's half the size. So,
Right.
Folks can go online and dig around in our antler records and see a chart that breaks it down both ways. So, total, looking just at numbers, that's the list. Looking at per unit area harvest, it changes a little bit. Abbeville, Allendale, Orangeburg is still in there, as is Aiken. So two different ways to look at it.
Right. So to recap a couple things, just for folks that may have joined late or just as we thinking about closing out tonight, the big things that help a deer get big or score, the things that make a deer score more. Number one, Charles, you said 30% of that score is beam length, main beam length.
Main beam length, 30%. Yeah. You got to have good
after
beams.
That,
you got beams. 30, 30, almost 40% is the points, 20% circumference. Spread is about 12%. But the bottom line is you got to have age and you got to have nutrition.
Absolutely. And width does somewhat correlate to beam length, won't it? Because to get that width, the beams are going to be longer. So there is a little correlation. If you got a wide deer, that 20-inch spread is going to score better because it's got more beam length also.
Well, particularly if those beams sweep in, some of these wide bucks that just go out, they're not going to have very big, very long beams. But the ones that are wide and then come in the middle, now you're cooking with gas.
I got you. All right. And then, so when you talk about mass, the circumference is only, what'd you say? That's just a portion of.
It's 20. On the average, it makes up about 20% of the total score. Yep.
All right.
But
so,
mass,
just want to mention that.
You get these real heavy deer, and it can run those numbers up in a hurry. Heavy mass.
Absolutely. And anything past 8 points runs you. I mean, you get to a 10-point, a 12-point, you've got more time length because you've got more times.
Correct.
So
you get more measurements. You're getting more
right.
measurements, and a 10-pointer will get a fairly average-looking 10-point will make the book, whereas a pretty strong-looking 8-point may not make the book just because you've got two more measurements.
That's right.
Well, I got to ask the Major this before we say goodnight, and that is, has Cora bagged a bigger one than you have in the book? Does she have a higher placement in the book
correctly.
than you? Really?
She's made the book, and I have not. That's correct.
Well, we got to get you in the book. What do you?
She made the book when she was 16.
What are you doing to get in the book? What are you doing to get yourself in the book?
Hunt hard and hunt long. It just doesn't quite work out the same. Like Charles said, though, I've killed some. I have taken some really nice deer that I'm very proud of, but even a nice 8-point like I've taken before, I got several of them that I'm very proud of, but they just didn't quite make the book. They missed by 3 or 4 points. Well, 3 or 4 inches.
I can vouch for that because I've measured several really good deer for Billy, and I'll tell you,
Thanks, Charles. Thanks for burying me with that.
No.
Yeah, he's come up short several times.
Well, but I mean, they're still great deer, and I measure a lot of deer. Billy knows that. And I tell folks when they walk in my office to get measured, if they don't make it, that deer has not changed, and you should still feel the same way about it. Period. Yeah. And that's just it.
Absolutely. If I do say so myself, Bill.
Hang in there, Major. You'll get it one day. You'll catch Cora, and you'll pass her one day. I have complete confidence in you. All right, guys,
thanks,
we need to wrap it. Yeah, go ahead, Major.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, Charles, for help us kind of understand scoring tonight. I think that was a good description for some folks. But as we close up the night, cold weather's upon us. Good deer hunting's out there. Just make sure you're safe when you go afield. Let folks know where you're going. Use a light when you go to and from the stand, particularly in low light, so that folks know that you are a person and not a deer moving.
Great advice. Major, thank you. Charles, thank you. We'll talk to you guys in a couple of weeks. Have a great time out there in the field, guys, and appreciate you very much.
Anytime.
All right, there you go. SC Wild, starring Major Billy Downer here on Sports Talk. Great stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope you did as well. Thank you, Pat, and thank you, everybody out there We'll see you tomorrow night on Sports Talk.